My wife just came back from a luxurious trip with her wealthy friends, and she's pregnant with my best friend's husband's child. Sounds like some cheap soap opera, right? But it's not. This is my real life. Do you know that feeling when the woman you trust, the one you kiss good morning every day, suddenly turns her back and betrays you in an instant? That moment when you've poured in all your love, all your hope, only to be stabbed straight through the chest? I lived it. I'm just a middle-aged man working hard, dreaming of something simple, a home, a child, a life that didn't need riches, only honesty and love. And then it all collapsed with one sentence from my wife. I'm pregnant, but it's not yours. If you've ever been a man who gave everything to protect a woman, you'll understand the way the blood drains cold, the way your heart stops beating. And that was only the beginning. Stay with me, because maybe, somewhere in this story, you'll see a piece of your own pain. It was a Tuesday evening in March when Melissa came home, and the moment she walked through the door, I knew something was brewing. She floated in like she'd just won the lottery, her eyes sparkling in that way that always meant trouble for me. I'd seen that look before. The last time she had it, we ended up with a Florida timeshare we used exactly once. Before that, it was ballroom dancing lessons that made me look like I was having a medical emergency in front of strangers. I was sprawled out on the couch, remote in hand, debating whether to watch grown men chase a ball around a field or some reality show where people pretended to fall in love in 30 days. Real tough choice. Then she burst out, "Honey, you're never going to believe what just happened." Her voice shook the windows. I muted the TV and braced myself, because whenever Melissa started a sentence like that, it usually meant my credit card was about to cry itself to sleep. She kicked off her heels, ridiculously expensive ones that cost more than my car payment, and practically vibrated with excitement. And I knew, whatever was coming next, it was going to change everything. "Claire just called," Melissa said, her whole body practically buzzing like she'd had 3 espressos back to back. Of course it was Claire Anderson. It was always Claire. Her best friend from college, the woman who lived in a completely different stratosphere than the rest of us. Claire had the kind of money that solved problems before they even existed. Her morning coffee probably came on a gold tray delivered by someone who called her ma'am. I'd met her plenty of times at those charity dinners Melissa dragged me to, and every time I felt like a tourist in someone else's country. Claire floated through life on a cushion of wealth and privilege while the rest of us just tried to keep the lights on. So when Melissa's face lit up and she said, she invited me on the most amazing girls' trip ever, my stomach sank. Let me guess, I thought. Private jets, $1,000 bottles of champagne, shopping sprees that cost more than our mortgage. Cabo San Lucas. That was the word that dropped like a hammer. A week in a beachfront villa, no husbands, no responsibilities, everything paid for. She was glowing like she'd found paradise. And me? I could already feel the storm clouds gathering. Melissa plopped down beside me on the couch, eyes shining like she'd just uncovered the secret to eternal happiness. "It's going to be incredible, Mike. Just us girls, no husbands, no kids, no work stress, a full week of spa treatments, champagne breakfasts, and catching up by the ocean. Can you even imagine?" She squeezed my hand like she was letting me in on some once-in-a-lifetime secret. I forced a laugh because I knew how this worked. When rich friends invited you somewhere, there was always a catch, and that catch usually meant my credit card was going to bleed. "Okay," I said, already bracing myself. "So how much is this dream week going to set us back?" Her grin widened. "That's the best part. Nothing. Claire's covering it all. The villa, the food, the drinks, the spa, everything." I sat back, blinking. Free? Nothing in life was ever free, especially not something that came out of Claire Anderson's glittering world. But Melissa looked so happy, happier than I'd seen her in months, that arguing felt pointless. "Sounds amazing," I said finally. Inside, though, A voice whispered that this was the kind of invitation that always came with consequences. The next few days were like watching a military operation unfold, only this one involved dresses, swimsuits, and enough shopping bags to fill a department store. Every evening I came home from work to find another stack of boxes in the hallway. Amazon, Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, you name it. Melissa was on a mission. New dresses, new shoes, new swimsuits. She even booked appointments for her hair, her nails, and probably a few other treatments I didn't want to think too hard about. By Friday, our bedroom looked like Nordstrom had exploded inside it. Piles of clothes, shoes still in their boxes, tags dangling everywhere. I leaned against the doorway, watching her try to cram half a boutique into 2 oversized suitcases. "Are you sure you packed enough?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. She shot me a look, but she was smiling. Very funny. Truth is, she looked happier than I'd seen her in months. And yeah, it stung to see my credit card gasping for air with every purchase, but some small part of me thought maybe she needed this. Maybe the glow in her eyes was worth it. At least, that's what I told myself as I dragged her overstuffed bags off the bed. Saturday morning came too early. Melissa was up before dawn, clattering around the kitchen like a kid on Christmas. I stumbled out of bed at 5 a.m., still half asleep, to find her sipping coffee in full makeup, hair already done, suitcase handles lined up by the door. She looked like she was headed to a magazine shoot, not a flight to Mexico. I fried some eggs, poured her another cup, and tried to ignore the nervous knot in my stomach. She kept checking her phone, refreshing her group chat with Claire and the others, grinning at every message. I told myself it was fine, that she deserved a little adventure. Still, there was a part of me that wanted to grab her hand and say, "Don't go." Instead, when the Uber pulled up, I carried her bags down the steps, loaded them in the trunk, and tried to keep it light. She kissed my cheek, already halfway in vacation mode, and I forced a smile. "Don't do anything I wouldn't do," I joked, trying to sound casual. She laughed, tossed her hair, and said, "You're ridiculous." And as the car pulled away, a chill ran through me. I had no idea just how prophetic those words would turn out to be. The moment the Uber turned the corner and disappeared, the silence hit me like a brick wall. No clatter of her heels on the tile, no perfume lingering in the air, just the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own breathing. I walked back into the house, and it felt empty. Not just quiet, empty. The bed looked too big, the living room too still. I dropped down onto the couch and stared at her coffee mug still sitting on the counter. For a second I almost called her, just to hear her voice. But I stopped myself. She deserved this. Melissa had been working hard, carrying stress on her shoulders for months. If anyone needed a break, needed to feel special, it was her. So I told myself it was fine. I told myself a week alone might even do us both some good. I could watch what I wanted, eat what I wanted, live like a bachelor for a few days, and she could soak in the sun, laugh with her friends, and come home refreshed. That's what I believed then. That's what I wanted to believe. The first 12 hours alone felt almost like a guilty pleasure. I ordered a large pepperoni pizza, cracked open a cold beer, and parked myself in front of the TV in nothing but my boxers. No arguments about greasy food, no reminders to put on pants. Just me, the remote, and the kind of freedom I hadn't felt since college. I flipped through every channel, landed on a game I didn't even care about, and cheered like it mattered. For a while, it was fun. But as the night dragged on, that fun started to fade. The pizza box sat half open on the coffee table, the beer cans stacked up like trophies of loneliness. The silence grew heavy, pressing in from every corner of the house. I glanced at her empty spot on the couch. Normally, Melissa would be curled up beside me, rolling her eyes at my terrible taste in shows. Instead, there was just a pillow, untouched. I turned the TV down low and sat there in the dim light, the emptiness louder than any noise. Freedom wasn't as sweet as I thought, and for the first time that day, I realized I missed her. Around 10 that night, my phone buzzed. FaceTime. Melissa. I sat up a little straighter, suddenly aware I was still in my boxers, half a pizza crust stuck to the plate beside me. I swiped to answer, and there she was, sun-kissed, glowing, her hair loose around her shoulders like she'd just stepped out of an ad. Behind her stretched the kind of view you only see on postcards. Turquoise water, palm trees swaying in the breeze, the outline of an infinity pool shimmering in the lights. "Hey, you," she said, smiling wide, the kind of smile that could light up a room. I smirked. "Looks rough. Must be torture drinking margaritas with the ocean behind you." She laughed, tossing her head back. That laugh used to make me feel like the luckiest man alive. "Oh, stop. It's amazing, Mike. The villa is unbelievable. You'd love it." I raised an eyebrow. "Villa? That's a fancy word for hotel." She grinned, shaking her head. "Trust me, this is no hotel." I chuckled, but as I watched her framed in that luxury I couldn't touch, a thought slid quietly into my chest. She was already in a different world, and I was just looking in from the outside. The next night, my phone lit up again. Another FaceTime. I answered, expecting the same smiling face, and sure enough, there she was. But this time, Melissa looked different. Her hair was styled perfectly, makeup flawless, lips a shade of red she never wore back home. She looked like she'd stepped off the cover of a magazine. "Wow," I said, half joking, half stunned. "Are you sure you're on vacation? Because it looks like you're heading to a photo shoot." She giggled, twirling a strand of hair. "Oh, stop. The girls and I are just getting ready for dinner. You know, nothing special." I glanced at the background. Dim lights, music thumping faintly, someone's laughter spilling in. It didn't look like nothing. "So, what did you do today?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She shrugged, eyes flicking off screen. "Oh, you know, beach, pool, a little shopping, same stuff." Her words were light, but there was something in the way she avoided my gaze, something rehearsed. I pressed a little, but every answer came back vague, slippery. She was beautiful, yes, but the more radiant she looked on that screen, the further away she felt. On the third night, the call came in a little later than usual. Melissa popped up on the screen, dressed to the nines again, hair shining, earrings sparkling under the soft glow of the villa lights. She was smiling, but there was a tension in her eyes I couldn't quite place. We were mid-conversation, me asking about her day, her laughing at some dumb joke I made, when I caught it. Just a flicker, a shadow moving behind her, broad shoulders, the unmistakable outline of a man crossing the room. I froze. Who was that? Melissa blinked, too quickly. "What? Oh, no one. Just one of the staff checking on something." She said it so fast it felt rehearsed. I narrowed my eyes. That didn't look like staff. That looked like Victor. She hesitated a beat too long, then forced a laugh. "Maybe. He stopped by earlier to help Claire with something. He's always buzzing around, you know how he is." My stomach tightened. Her smile was perfect, her tone light, but there was a crack in the veneer now. For the first time, I felt it, the seed of doubt, sharp and cold, taking root in my chest. The pattern repeated itself over the next 3 nights, almost like clockwork. She'd call a little later than the night before, dressed a little fancier, her smile just a little too polished. At first, she'd gush about the beach or some silly story with the girls, but the details got thinner each time. By the third call, she was practically giving me headlines. "We went out, had some drinks. It was fun." That was it. No color, no spark, none of the little things she usually couldn't wait to share. And every time I swore I caught something in the background, voices, movement, a quick glance off screen she thought I wouldn't notice. When I asked, she brushed it off with that same sing-song tone. "Oh, just the staff. Don't worry, babe." I laughed it off with her, told her to have fun, but the second the screen went dark, the laughter died in my throat. Jealousy burned in the pit of my stomach, quiet but relentless. Still, I forced myself to swallow it down. This was her trip. She deserved it. I wasn't going to be that insecure husband who ruined it with paranoia. At least, that's what I told myself. When the week was finally over, I wanted to make sure Melissa knew just how much I'd missed her. I drove to the airport early, parked, and stood at the arrivals gate like some lovesick teenager. In one hand, I held a bunch of her favorite flowers, bright sunflowers, wrapped clumsily because I'd never been good at presentation. In the other, a cheap bottle of champagne I'd stuffed into a gift bag, and hanging around my neck, a ridiculous poster board I'd scrawled on with a Sharpie, "Welcome home, Melissa. Cabo can't compete with me." People walking by chuckled, some gave me thumbs up. I didn't care. I wanted her to walk through those sliding doors and see me grinning like an idiot, waiting for her. When I finally spotted her in the crowd, my heart jumped. She looked stunning, tan, glowing, suitcase rolling behind her. For a second, it was like we were back in college and I was picking her up from a weekend trip. I waved the sign high, called her name. She smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile I was used to. It was polite, distant, like I was a neighbor waving hello, not her husband waiting to sweep her into his arms. And in that moment, my excitement cracked just a little. She finally made her way through the crowd, suitcase in tow, and I stepped forward with the biggest grin I could manage. I opened my arms wide, flowers in one hand, goofy sign still dangling from my neck. For a heartbeat, I pictured her dropping everything, running into me like she used to after business trips, kissing me like she'd been counting the minutes. But that's not what happened. Melissa leaned in, gave me a quick, polite hug, the kind you give a distant relative at a family barbecue, and then stepped back almost immediately. No kiss, no sparkle in her eyes, just a tired smile and a quick glance around, as if making sure no one was watching. My chest tightened. The flowers suddenly felt heavier, the champagne ridiculous. Still, I forced a laugh, cracked some dumb line about her glow making the whole airport look dim. She chuckled softly, but it didn't reach her eyes. I wanted to ask 100 questions right there. Why she felt so far away, why her touch was cold, but instead, I swallowed it. Told myself she was tired, jet-lagged, distracted. Whatever excuse made it easier to ignore the fact that something between us had shifted. And deep down, I already knew it wasn't going back. The ride home felt longer than the flight she'd just gotten off. Melissa slid into the passenger seat, buckled her belt, and immediately pulled out her phone. Her thumbs moved fast, tapping out messages, the glow of the screen lighting up her face. I tried to fill the silence. "So," I said, pulling out of the parking lot, "tell me about Cabo. Was the water as blue as those travel brochures?" "Mm-hmm," she murmured without looking up. I tried again. "Did you end up swimming with dolphins like you always talked about?" She scrolled, smiled faintly at whatever was on her screen, then said, "Didn't get the chance. Too busy." That was it. No details, no laughter, no funny stories about Claire's over-the-top antics. Just her and the phone, the sound of keys clicking, the occasional soft vibration of a new notification. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. This wasn't the woman who used to talk my ear off after a simple grocery run. I glanced at her profile, that faint smile she wasn't giving to me. My gut churned. Something was wrong, and no amount of small talk was going to cover it. When we pulled into the driveway, I tried to shake off the unease. I had planned this moment, rehearsed it in my head all week. While she was gone, I'd picked up her favorite takeout from that little Italian place downtown, set the dining table with candles, even scattered a few petals like some rookie trying too hard. A bottle of red sat breathing on the counter, waiting to be poured. I carried her bags inside and said, "Surprise." I gestured toward the table, the soft glow of candlelight flickering against the walls. It wasn't five-star Cabo, but it was my way of saying, "Welcome home." Melissa stood there for a moment, suitcase still in hand. She smiled, but it was tight, practiced, like the kind of smile you give a coworker in an elevator. "That's "Sweet, Mike," she said quietly, before slipping past me to put her phone on the charger. We sat down to eat, but it wasn't really dinner. It was two people moving through motions. I cracked jokes. She laughed politely. I tried to catch her eyes. She kept looking away. The food was warm, the wine was smooth, but between us stretched an invisible wall, higher than anything I could climb. That first night back, I tried to tell myself everything was fine. We'd had a nice dinner, even if it felt forced, and maybe tomorrow she'd settle in, shake off the travel fatigue, and be herself again. That's what I told myself as we got ready for bed. Melissa disappeared into the bathroom with her toiletries bag. I heard the usual sounds: water running, drawers opening, the faint clink of bottles. But then came a sound I hadn't heard in years: the sharp click of the lock. I froze. Melissa never locked the bathroom door. Not when we were dating, not in all our years of marriage. It was such a small sound, but it hit me like a gunshot. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at that closed door, trying to make sense of it. Was she just tired? Did she want privacy after a week of sharing a villa? Or was it something else, something she didn't want me to see? When she finally emerged, she smiled faintly, slid under the covers, and turned off the lamp without a word. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling like a stranger in my own marriage. That one locked door said more than she ever would. The days that followed only deepened the gap. Melissa drifted through the house like a ghost, her phone practically glued to her hand. Morning coffee, phone in her lap. Dinner, screen lighting up her face while I pushed food around my plate. Even at night, when we used to curl up together, she lay turned away, the faint glow of texts flickering until she finally fell asleep. Whenever I asked, she had the same answer: work emergency. She'd sigh dramatically, say the nonprofit was understaffed, that everyone relied on her. It sounded noble, even believable, but the tone was wrong. It was too rehearsed, too quick. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But every vibration of that phone was like a needle in my chest. I'd glance over, catch her smiling at a message, only for her to tilt the screen away. I didn't push. I cracked jokes, suggested movie nights, even offered to cook. She nodded, murmured maybe later, and kept typing. And in the silence that followed, I felt it growing inside me, a knot of suspicion I couldn't untie, no matter how hard I tried to swallow it down. A month slipped by, though it didn't feel like living. It felt like serving time. Our house, once full of little noises, her humming while she cooked, our arguments over what to watch, the rhythm of everyday life, had gone silent. It wasn't peace. It was prison. I tried. God knows I tried. I brought home her favorite takeout, suggested date nights, even booked a weekend getaway just for the two of us. Each time she brushed me off with the same tired excuses. I'm busy. Maybe later. Not now, Mike. Her voice was flat, her eyes somewhere far away. At night, I'd reach for her hand under the covers, and she'd pull away, turning her back. The bed might as well have been split down the middle. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe, wondering if she even noticed me anymore. The walls of our home seemed colder, heavier. Every laugh track on the TV echoed in the emptiness. Every meal eaten in silence felt like a reminder that something between us had cracked wide open. And as much as I told myself to be patient, the truth was impossible to ignore. Our marriage wasn't just strained, it was unraveling, thread by thread, right in front of me. It was a gray Saturday morning when it happened. I was sitting at the kitchen table, nursing my second cup of coffee, half reading the paper just to fill the silence. Melissa came in quietly, no phone in her hand for once. Her eyes were red, her face pale. She sat across from me, hands trembling around a mug she didn't drink from. "Mike," she whispered, her voice cracking, "I need to tell you something." I set the paper down, suddenly alert. She swallowed hard, tears pooling before she could stop them. Then the words came out sharp and soft all at once. I'm pregnant. For a heartbeat, maybe two, I felt everything lift. My chest opened, my heart raced, and for the first time in months, joy crashed through me like a flood. Pregnant. Finally. The dream we had whispered about for years, the family we had wanted so badly, it was here. I jumped up, grabbed her hands, already picturing a tiny crib, late nights, laughter filling the house again. And in those 3 seconds, I believed we were saved, that this was the miracle that would stitch us back together. I didn't know the knife was still coming. I was still gripping her hands when she pulled them back, her shoulders shaking. She couldn't look at me. Her lips trembled, and then she said it. 4 words that split my world in half. It's not yours. The room went silent, except for the rush of blood pounding in my ears. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to say it was some cruel joke, anything but the truth I'd just heard. My chest felt like it had caved in, air ripped from my lungs. I stumbled back into my chair, the legs screeching against the tile. What do you mean? My voice cracked, sounding foreign in my own throat. Melissa buried her face in her hands. I'm so sorry, Mike. I didn't mean for this to happen. I made a mistake. Mistake. The word echoed like a gunshot. My mind raced through every moment. The late calls, the shadows on FaceTime, the distance in her eyes. It all clicked, snapping together in a picture I didn't want to see. In 3 seconds, I had gone from the highest joy to the lowest hell. The dream of a family, gone. Replaced with betrayal that cut deeper than anything I'd ever known. Melissa finally lifted her head, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again, like she was trying to force the words out of a throat that didn't want to speak. When they finally came, they landed like a hammer. It's Victor. For a moment, I didn't understand. My mind scrambled, reaching for another Victor, any other Victor. But there was only one. Victor Anderson, Claire's husband, my friend, the man I'd sat across from at barbecues, toasted beers with, watched football games beside. I felt my stomach twist, my chest clamped tight, like someone had wrapped a fist around my heart and was squeezing. My ears rang. Victor Anderson? I asked, even though I already knew. She nodded, sobbing now. It was stupid, Mike. I don't even know how it happened. It just... Don't, I snapped, my voice raw, broken. Don't you dare tell me it just happened. The kitchen spun around me. Images flashed through my head. Melissa laughing on FaceTime, those late-night silences, the way she'd locked the bathroom door. All of it pointed here, to this, to the man I thought was a friend and the woman I thought was my partner. And sitting there, choking on betrayal, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. Melissa wiped her face with the back of her hand, trembling as if the words themselves were knives cutting her on the way out. Claire had to fly to Boston, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mom was sick. She needed to be there. Victor stayed behind, said he'd keep an eye on us, make sure everything was fine. I sat frozen, jaw clenched so hard it hurt, but I let her keep talking. One night, she continued, we all went out. It was supposed to be just fun, music, drinks, nothing serious. But Claire wasn't there, and Victor, he was charming, he was generous. Everyone was laughing, and I drank too much. We ended up back at the villa and... Her words trailed off, but the picture was already painted. She buried her face again, sobbing. It wasn't planned, Mike. It wasn't supposed to happen. I swear I didn't mean to betray you like this. I sat there, the coffee in my stomach turning to acid, listening to my wife explain how my best friend's husband filled the void while I was at home waiting for her call. Every syllable was like another nail in the coffin of our marriage, and all I could think was, Betrayal doesn't just fall out of the sky. It's a choice. And she made it. I slammed my palm against the table, the sound sharp enough to make her flinch. My voice came out louder than I intended, raw and jagged. How do you just trip and fall into his bed, Melissa? Tell me, how does that happen? She shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't like that. I swear it wasn't some planned affair. It was stupid, Mike. A stupid, drunken mistake. Her words tumbled out, desperate, as if the speed could somehow erase the meaning. A mistake? I spat back. For God's sake, forgetting to pay the electric bill is a mistake. Locking your keys in the car is a mistake. Sleeping with my friend's husband? That's not a mistake, that's a choice. Melissa buried her face in her hands, her shoulders heaving. I know, I was weak, I was drunk, I wasn't thinking. If I could take it back, I would. I stood there, fists clenched, fighting the urge to scream, to throw something, to do anything to drown out her voice. But the truth was already burned into me. No excuse, no amount of tears could change it. She had crossed a line we could never uncross. My rage boiled over, spilling past the walls I'd tried to hold up. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that didn't even sound like me. Unbelievable, I said, pacing the kitchen like a man trapped in a cage. You destroy our marriage, you get pregnant with another man's child, and I'm supposed to just... what? Nod along? Pretend it was some little slip-up? Melissa slid off her chair and onto her knees, sobbing. Mike, please. I'm begging you. I love you. I never stopped loving you. It was one night, one stupid night. I don't want him. I want you. Her words sliced through me, but not the way she wanted. They didn't heal. They cut deeper. You love me? I barked, pointing a shaking finger at her. You don't destroy the people you love, Melissa. You don't crawl into my friend's bed and then come back to tell me you still love me. That isn't love. That's a knife to the heart. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back like her touch burned. Every tear that fell, every word she pleaded, only twisted the blade already lodged in my chest. I couldn't recognize her anymore. And worse, I couldn't recognize myself in this marriage. Melissa stayed on her knees, her voice breaking, her hands clutching at the air between us like she could pull me back. I don't know how to fix this, Mike, she cried. I don't know what to do. Just tell me, please. Tell me how to make it right. Her words tore through me. There was a part of me, the part that had built a life with her, dreamed of children with her, that wanted to reach down, pull her up, and tell her we'd figure it out. But the other part, the louder part, burned with a hatred I'd never known before. Hatred not just for what she had done, but for what she had taken from me. I stood there, shaking, caught between the urge to hold her and the urge to walk out and never look back. My chest ached with the weight of both. You can't fix this, I whispered, my throat raw. You broke it. You shattered it. And now you want me to hand you the glue? Her sobs filled the kitchen, echoing off the walls of the home we'd built together. And in that moment, I realized I was standing in the ruins, not of a house, but of everything we once were. I slammed my hands down on the table, the sound vibrating through the room. No more half-truths, no more excuses. I want it all, Melissa. Every detail. If you're going to kill me, do it all the way. Don't leave me bleeding halfway. Her face crumpled, but she nodded, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. It was that night after the beach, she whispered. Claire had already flown back to Boston. The rest of us went out to this little bar on the Strip, open air, neon lights, the kind of place where the music shakes your bones. They were serving these tropical cocktails, colorful and strong. I drank too many. I laughed too much. Victor, she choked on his name. He kept ordering round after round. Said we should celebrate, said we deserved it. I closed my eyes, but the images still came. My wife, giggling under those glowing lights, leaning closer to him, glass in hand. Melissa's voice broke. We went back to the villa. Everyone else went to their rooms. I didn't stop him, Mike. I should have. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't. And then it was too late. Her words landed like hammer blows. Every detail drove the knife deeper, and I realized there was no bottom to this pain. It just kept sinking further into me. I couldn't take it anymore. Her words were still echoing in my skull when I grabbed my keys and stormed out the door. The night air slapped me in the face, cool but suffocating, and I climbed into the truck like it was the only place I could breathe. I started driving, no destination, just asphalt rolling under my tires and headlights cutting through the dark. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles burned white. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to do anything that might quiet the chaos in my head. But no sound came out, just silence, heavier than any words. Then, like a lightning bolt, it hit me. Claire, Melissa's so-called best friend, the woman who had trusted her, who had trusted him. She had no idea. She was sitting somewhere in Boston, tending to her sick mother, while back in Cabo her husband was climbing into bed with my wife. The betrayal wasn't just mine. It stretched further, wider, poisoning everything it touched. My chest tightened as the thought dug in. Not only had I lost my marriage, but Claire, who had always treated me with kindness, was living in a lie she hadn't even begun to suspect. And somehow, that made the whole mess even darker. By the time dawn broke, I hadn't slept a minute. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the cold cup of coffee in front of me, hands trembling from rage and exhaustion. The sun crept through the blinds like nothing had happened, like the world hadn't caved in just hours before. But inside me, everything was rubble. One thought wouldn't let me go. Claire. She was still in Boston, caring for her mother, trusting Victor, trusting Melissa. And here I was, holding the truth like a live grenade. I pictured her smiling face at dinner parties, her arm looped through Victor's, her kindness toward me when I was the outsider in their glittering world. She deserved to know. Didn't she? My stomach churned, my chest tight as I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over her contact, heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. What would I even say? How do you tell someone their husband and best friend have set fire to everything? I closed my eyes, inhaled, and pressed the button. The line began to ring. Each tone stretched forever, like the air itself was holding its breath. When her voice finally answered, soft and unsuspecting, my mouth went dry. Hello? Claire's voice was warm, tired, like she hadn't slept much. For a second I almost hung up, but the truth was burning in my chest, and if I didn't say it now, I never would. Claire, it's Mike, I started, my throat dry. Mike, is everything okay? You sound... I cut her off before I could lose my nerve. Claire, I need to tell you something, and it's going to hurt. My voice cracked. Victor, he was with Melissa, in Cabo. It happened. There was silence, long, suffocating silence, then a sharp inhale like she'd been punched in the gut. What? Her voice climbed, raw with disbelief. No, Mike, don't say that. I wish I didn't have to, but it's the truth. I wouldn't tell you if I wasn't sure. Suddenly the line filled with sobs, harsh and broken. He promised me. He promised. I was in Boston taking care of my mother while they... Her words dissolved into a scream, a sound so full of pain it felt like glass shattering in my ear. I sat there gripping the phone, listening to her world collapse in real time. 2 families destroyed in one confession. And there was no taking it back. Claire's sobs suddenly hardened into something sharper. Her voice, still trembling, turned into steel. I'm calling him. Right now. That bastard is not stepping foot in this house again. Claire, I started, but it was too late. I heard her fumbling with the phone, the click of another call firing off. A minute later, a storm erupted on the other end. Shouts, curses, her voice rising like fire. "How could you, Victor? While I was gone, with her? Get out! Get the hell out of my house!" There was crashing in the background, doors slamming, drawers pulled open. Then came Victor's muffled voice, defensive, angry, but drowned under Claire's rage. "Don't you dare talk to me! Don't you dare!" she screamed, her voice ragged. And then, silence. A silence so sudden it made my chest tighten. When she came back on the line, her breathing was ragged. "He's gone. I threw him out. I don't care if he begs on his knees, he's never stepping through that door again." I closed my eyes, exhaling a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. For the first time since Melissa's confession, I felt a sliver of relief. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Throwing him out was only the first strike. The storm had only just begun. When I finally walked back through the front door, the air inside felt heavier than the night outside. Melissa was pacing the living room, her phone clutched in her hand, eyes wild and red from crying. The second she saw me, she exploded. "You called her, didn't you?" Her voice cracked into a scream. "You told Claire. How could you do that, Mike? How could you destroy her life like that?" I froze, stunned by the twisted logic of it all. "Destroy her life?" My voice rose, sharper than I intended. "I didn't destroy anything, Melissa. You did, you and Victor." Her face crumpled, but the fury didn't fade. "No, you don't understand. Claire's fragile. She's been dealing with her mom, with so much already. And you thought sleeping with her husband would help?" I snapped. My words sliced the room, leaving nothing but silence. Melissa backed away a step, covering her face, sobbing into her hands. I stood there shaking, two fires burning inside me at once. Part of me still ached to hold her, to remember the woman I married. The other part wanted to never see her face again. And for the first time, I realized I didn't know which fire would win. Melissa's sobs turned violent. She hurled her phone onto the tile, the crack of plastic and glass echoing through the kitchen. "We can still fix this, Mike," she screamed, tears streaking down her face. "We can get help. We can go to therapy. We can—" I cut her off, my voice shaking with rage. "Fix this? You think therapy erases the fact that you slept with Claire's husband? That you're carrying his child? That you lied to me every single night while I sat here waiting for you?" My chest heaved, every word tasting like blood. She staggered back, clutching the counter for support. "I was lonely, Mike. You don't know what it's like. Being ignored, feeling invisible. Victor made me feel wanted." I slammed my fist on the counter so hard the dishes rattled. "Wanted? Melissa, I wanted you. I've always wanted you. I cooked for you, planned for you, built a life for you, and you threw it away for a man who couldn't even stay faithful to his own wife." Her face twisted in agony, her voice breaking. "I made a mistake." "No," I spat, my eyes burning into hers. "You made a choice, and now we're both paying for it." The kitchen shook with our voices, the weight of years of love and betrayal colliding in one brutal storm. Melissa's words still hung in the air, sharp and poisonous. "Maybe I never really loved you." It felt like the ground gave way under my feet, like she'd finally driven the knife all the way in. I stood there, staring at her, this woman I had built my life around, the one I thought I knew better than anyone, and I realized she wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never had been. My voice came out low, steady, colder than I'd ever heard it. "There is no us anymore." Melissa's knees buckled. She sank to the floor, clutching her stomach, sobbing like the sound alone could glue the pieces back together. "No, Mike, please don't say that. Don't end it like this. We can find a way. We can fight for us." But I only shook my head. The fire inside me had burned past anger into something emptier, final. "There's nothing left to fight for, Melissa. You made sure of that." Her cries filled the kitchen, raw and unrestrained, but I didn't move. I didn't reach for her. I didn't bend down to comfort her. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt nothing but the cold certainty that our story was over, and no amount of begging would change that. Her sobs softened for just a moment, enough for her to lift her head and look at me through tear-swollen eyes. "Mike," she whispered, her voice broken but deliberate, "we don't have to throw this away. We can still have a life together. You can raise this baby with me. We can raise it as our own." The words hit me like acid, searing through every vein. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. "Raise his child?" I spat, each syllable dripping with disbelief. "You want me to look into that kid's eyes every day and pretend it's mine? Pretend that betrayal never happened? You're asking me to chain myself to your mistake for the rest of my life." She crawled toward me, grabbing at my leg, sobbing. "It wouldn't be a mistake if we made it ours. Please, Mike. I can't do this alone. I need you. You're my husband." I shook her off, my chest heaving, rage colliding with grief. "No, Melissa. Husbands protect. Wives are supposed to be faithful. Whatever this is, this nightmare, it isn't a marriage anymore." Her pleas echoed in the kitchen like a siren, but to me, they were just noise. The line had already been crossed, and there was no coming back. I pulled away from her grip, my chest heaving as the words boiled out of me, harsher than I'd ever spoken in my life. "Do you even hear yourself, Melissa? Every birthday, every Christmas, every milestone, I'd be staring into the eyes of a child that isn't mine, and every single time I'd see his face, Victor's face, the man you chose over me." Melissa shook her head violently, tears pouring down. "No, Mike, it wouldn't be like that. It could be ours. Love changes things, I swear it does." I laughed, but there was no humor in it, just a sound brittle and broken. "Love. You killed love the second you let him touch you. You buried it. And now you want me to pretend none of it matters? To raise his child as proof of my devotion? That's not love, Melissa. That's a prison." Her sobs grew louder, raw, almost animal. "Please, please don't leave me. I can't do this without you." I looked at her, this woman I had once adored, and all I felt was the crushing weight of finality. She had asked me to carry a burden I could never lift, and for the first time I understood. If I stayed, I'd be living a life that wasn't mine anymore, and I couldn't. The days that followed were a theater of desperation. Melissa shifted tactics, as if she thought she could patch over the gaping hole with gestures and tears. She cried, loud, messy sobs that echoed through the house at random hours, as though sheer volume could break me down. If I retreated to the bedroom, she'd cry in the hallway. If I tried to eat alone, she'd sit across from me, tears dripping into her plate. Then came the cooking. She filled the kitchen with smells I used to love, lasagna bubbling in the oven, fresh bread, roast chicken. She'd set the table neatly, candles lit, plates waiting. And when I sat down, trying to swallow a bite through the lump in my throat, she'd watch me like a starving woman, whispering, "See? We can still have this. We can still be us." And then, the notes. Little scraps of paper tucked into my coat pocket, stuck to the mirror, hidden in my wallet. "I'm sorry. I still love you. Don't give up on us." Every one of them felt like a dagger, forcing me to relive the betrayal she thought words could erase. But no matter how hard she pushed, through tears, through food, through pleading ink on paper, the truth never changed. I saw Victor's shadow in all of it, and nothing she cooked, cried, or wrote could cover that stain. By the second week, I couldn't even recognize the rhythm of our home anymore. Melissa's efforts had turned into a non-stop performance. Crying at dawn, overcooked dinners at dusk, little apology notes tucked under my pillow like confetti at a funeral. One night, I caught myself actually laughing, not out of joy, but out of the bitter absurdity of it all. Sitting there at the kitchen table, staring at another plate of untouched pasta and a handwritten note that said, "We can start fresh," I shook my head and muttered under my breath, "She's running a PR campaign for a dead marriage." Because that's what it felt like. A desperate marketing pitch. A sales job to convince me that the brand wasn't tarnished, when in reality the product was broken beyond repair. Melissa saw me laugh and mistook it for hope. She rushed over, clutching my arm, her eyes wide. "See? You smiled. That means we still have a chance, right? You still believe in us, don't you?" I pulled away, the hollow chuckle still stinging my throat. "No, Melissa. I smiled because it's pathetic. Because you think cooking and sticky notes can erase betrayal. But they can't. Nothing can." Her face crumpled again, and the silence that followed was heavier than any shouting match. The house itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the final snap of the thread keeping us tethered together. That night, I couldn't bring myself to share the bed with her anymore. The weight of her body beside me felt like a lie pressing down on my chest, so I grabbed a blanket and stretched out on the sofa. The cushions were lumpy, the air colder, but at least I could breathe. Through the window, I could see her on the front porch, curled up in a chair with her knees to her chest, staring blankly into the dark. A glass of untouched wine sat on the railing beside her, the candle she'd lit sputtering against the wind. She looked small, broken even, but I couldn't let myself feel pity, not when she had chosen this path. Still, what struck me wasn't her sadness. It was the denial. The way she sat there as if all of this was temporary, like I'd eventually walk back out and say, "Okay, let's forget it ever happened." She clung to that fantasy, even as the gulf between us widened by the hour. Inside, the house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Outside, Melissa sat frozen in her world of make-believe, and I lay awake on that sofa, staring at the ceiling, knowing more than ever that we weren't just in different rooms, we were in different worlds. The next morning, I shuffled into the kitchen, still stiff from the sofa. Melissa was already there, moving quietly like some strange version of her old self. She poured coffee into my favorite mug, slid it across the counter, and smiled like it was any other day, like none of it had ever happened. "Morning," she said softly, almost cheerful. I stared at the steaming cup, at the effort she was still clinging to, and something inside me twisted. For years, that simple ritual, her making coffee, me reading the paper, was the fabric of our marriage. Now it felt like theater, a stage set for an audience that had already left. I didn't touch the cup. I just looked at her and said nothing. Her smile wavered, but she held on to it, desperate, as if ignoring the wreckage could make it disappear. And that's when I knew. This wasn't going to fix itself. This wasn't something we could cry or cook our way out of. She was living in denial, and I was suffocating in it. That afternoon, I made the call. I found a divorce attorney, set up a meeting, and marked the day on my calendar. For the first time in weeks, I felt clarity. Not peace, not relief, but a cold, steady resolve. The marriage was already dead. It was time to bury it. Robert Mitchell's office smelled faintly of leather and old books, the kind of place where hard truths got spoken without sugarcoating. He was an older man, silver hair, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of lawyer who'd seen marriages rise and collapse 100 times over. I sat across from him, hands folded tight, while he flipped through a yellow legal pad. Finally, he looked up. "Mike, I'm going to be blunt. This isn't salvageable. From what you've told me, you need to protect yourself, emotionally, legally, and financially." I nodded, my throat tight. "I already know it's over. I never thought I'd be here." Robert leaned forward. "First thing, we demand a paternity test. If the child isn't yours, and from what you've said, that's likely, you need that established in writing. Otherwise, the court could still put support obligations on you. Don't give her a chance to drag you into raising another man's child under law." The words hit hard, like someone hammering nails into the coffin of my marriage. Necessary, but brutal. He went on about property division, accounts, the house. My mind drifted, catching only fragments, splitting assets, custody of nothing, a life divided into paperwork. When I walked out, the sun was blinding. I'd thought filing for divorce would feel like freedom, but all I felt was hollow. hollow and furious that it had come to this. When I walked back into the house, Melissa was at the kitchen counter sifting through the day's mail. Her hands froze the moment she spotted the envelope with Robert Mitchell's letterhead. Her eyes shot up to mine, wide and wet, already brimming with panic. "Mike, what is this?" Her voice cracked, trembling as she held the unopened envelope like it was a death sentence. I didn't flinch. "It's exactly what you think it is," I said flatly. "Divorce papers are coming. I met with a lawyer." She gasped, stumbling back as if I'd struck her. No, Mike, please don't do this. Don't throw everything away. We can fix it, we can—" I cut her off, my tone sharp but steady. "Melissa, stop. This isn't about fixing anything anymore. It's about survival. I don't want revenge. I don't want drama. I just want dignity and peace of mind. And I'll never have either if I stay here pretending we still have a marriage." She broke then, sobbing openly, clutching at my arm like a drowning woman reaching for a lifeline. "Please, Mike, I'll do anything. Anything. Don't leave me." I looked down at her, and for the first time in weeks, I felt nothing. No pity, no hope, just a resolve carved so deep it scared me. "I already left," I whispered, "the night you chose him." Melissa's tears slowed, replaced by a stunned, hollow stare. It was as if she hadn't heard me right, as if the words divorce and over couldn't possibly belong in her world. Her lips parted, trembling. "Wait, you're serious? You're actually ending this?" I didn't move, didn't blink. "Yes, Melissa, I am." She staggered back, pressing her hand against the counter for support. "But I thought—" Her voice cracked, disbelief dripping from every syllable. "I thought you'd forgive me. I thought, after everything, after the years we've had, you'd find a way to get past this." Her words landed like a cruel joke. My chest tightened, but not from love, from the sheer absurdity of it. "You thought I'd forgive you? That I'd raise another man's child, sleep next to you every night, pretending none of this happened?" She shook her head, tears streaming again. "I didn't think it would end like this, Mike. I thought we were stronger than this. I thought you loved me enough to stay." I let out a bitter laugh, low and ragged. "Melissa, I did love you enough to stay. I loved you through loneliness, through struggles, through everything. But love isn't enough when it's only coming from one side. You gambled our marriage on a drunken night with Victor, and now you're shocked I won't pay the debt." Her knees buckled, and for the first time she seemed to realize my love was gone, and with it, any chance of saving us. Her shock didn't last long. It shifted into frantic energy, her voice rising, words spilling like a flood she couldn't control. "Mike, please don't do this. I know I was wrong. I know I broke everything, but I can change. I will change. Just give me the chance." I stayed silent, my arms folded across my chest, watching her pace the kitchen like a trapped animal. She rushed on, desperation in every syllable. "We can go to counseling, marriage therapy, couples retreats, anything. People come back from worse. We can rebuild, brick by brick. I'll prove to you every single day that I can be better, that I can be faithful again." Her eyes searched mine, wild and pleading. "Don't throw away decades over one mistake. Don't let Victor take everything from us." My jaw clenched. "This isn't about Victor taking anything. This is about you giving it away." She shook her head violently, reaching for me like she could anchor herself to my resolve. "Mike, I'll do whatever it takes. Delete my phone, cut ties with everyone, quit my job if I have to. Just say the word. Just don't walk away from us." Her voice cracked on the last plea, echoing through the kitchen like the final act of a play. But all I felt was the weight of her words pressing against a heart that had already shut its doors. Melissa's hands trembled as they reached for mine, but I didn't move. My voice came out steady, colder than ice. "Some mistakes are too big to fix." Her face collapsed, as if those words had slammed the last door shut. "No, Mike, please, don't say that. Nothing is too big if two people still love each other. I shook my head slowly. That's where you're wrong. Love doesn't erase betrayal. Love doesn't turn back time. Love doesn't make me forget watching you glow on those FaceTime calls while I sat here alone. And it damn sure doesn't erase the fact that you're carrying another man's child. She covered her mouth with her hand, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. It was one night, one stupid night. Are you really going to let that destroy everything we built? I slammed my fist against the table, the sound echoing through the kitchen. You destroyed it, Melissa. Not me. I didn't break us. I was here. I was faithful. I believed in us. And you handed it all to Victor like it was nothing. Her knees buckled, and she sank onto the floor again, choking on her tears. The sight should have broken me, but it didn't. All it did was carve the truth deeper. There was no road back. The marriage wasn't wounded. It was dead. I didn't wait for another round of excuses. I walked past her into the bedroom, pulled out a duffel bag, and started tossing clothes inside. Shirts, jeans, a few pairs of shoes. No plan, just movement. The zipper screamed as I dragged it shut. Melissa stumbled after me, her voice hoarse from crying. "What are you doing?" she gasped, clutching the doorframe. I didn't even look up. "Packing. I'm finding an apartment, somewhere small, quiet, somewhere I can breathe again." Her sobs rose into panic. "No, Mike, you can't just walk out. Please, don't leave me like this." I paused, meeting her eyes at last. The woman standing there looked like a stranger, disheveled, desperate, clinging to scraps. "Melissa, I stayed through every storm we ever had. I fought for us more times than I can count. But this isn't a storm. It's a collapse. And I won't keep living under a roof that's already caved in." She slid down the wall, clutching her knees, whispering, "I can't lose you," over and over like a mantra. I slung the bag over my shoulder. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to clarity. Not peace, not relief, just the first step toward freedom. The apartment was small, barely more than 4 walls and a kitchen that smelled faintly of fresh paint. The carpet was thin, the view nothing but a parking lot, and the silence heavy. But it was mine. No ghosts of betrayal lingering in the corners. No sobs echoing through the night. Just emptiness. And for once, that felt cleaner than the chaos I'd left behind. Of course, Melissa didn't stop. The calls started almost immediately, her number flashing on my phone at all hours, voicemails thick with tears. "Mike, please, don't do this. Don't leave me. I'll change, I promise." One evening, she even showed up at the apartment door, pounding with both fists, her voice breaking in the hallway. "You can't just erase us, Mike. You can't throw me away like garbage." I stood on the other side, gripping the doorknob, listening to her sobs bleed through the wood. My chest ached, my hands shook, but I didn't open it. Not this time. Finally, I whispered to myself, steady and certain, "It's done. We're done." And as her cries faded down the hall, swallowed by silence, I knew the truth. No matter how much she begged, no matter how much it hurt, we had crossed a line we could never come back from. I remember the night I left our house for the last time. The duffel bag was slung over my shoulder, heavier with memories than clothes. Melissa was still crying in the doorway, begging, bargaining, reaching for a future that no longer existed. Her voice cracked into the night, raw and desperate, but I didn't turn around. I stepped off that porch and walked down the path we used to take together, past the flowers she planted in spring, past the mailbox with our names still printed side by side. The Uber idled at the curb, its headlights cutting across the yard, waiting to carry me away from everything I thought was permanent. Each step felt like a sentence in a chapter closing. My chest was tight, my throat burning, but my legs didn't falter. I opened the car door, tossed the bag in, and slid into the back seat. The driver glanced at me in the mirror, sensing something heavy, but wisely saying nothing. As we pulled away, Melissa's figure grew smaller in the rear view until she was swallowed by darkness. I didn't look back. Couldn't. because if I did, I might hesitate. And hesitation had already cost me too much. For the first time, the road ahead was mine alone. Empty. Painful. But mine. The first night in the apartment was brutal in its simplicity. A futon pressed against the wall, a thrift store TV balanced on a milk crate, and a single lamp that threw more shadows than light. The fridge hummed like the only heartbeat in the room. It was bare, hollow, stripped down to nothing. Yet strangely, it was mine. I sat on the futon with a paper plate of takeout pizza, the cardboard box still open on the floor. No fancy dinners, no forced conversations, no notes taped to mirrors begging for forgiveness. Just me, silence, and the cheap hum of a refrigerator. And as lonely as it felt, I realized it was also the first taste of freedom I'd had in months. I could breathe without suspicion clinging to the air. I could stretch out on that futon without wondering who had been in my bed. The emptiness was sharp, yes, but it was honest. Melissa's ghost still lingered in my head. Her tears, her pleading, her betrayal replaying in flashes. But the walls here didn't hold her. They held me, and only me. It wasn't home yet. It was too cold, too quiet. But it was a beginning, and beginnings, even broken ones, carry a kind of hope. The first weeks alone were humbling in ways I never expected. Freedom had a raw edge to it. It wasn't just silence and space. It was the sudden reminder of how much I had leaned on the routines of a shared life. Dinner became a bowl of cereal more nights than not. I'd stand over the sink, spooning soggy flakes into my mouth, staring at the blank wall like it might offer answers. The stove stayed cold, the counters bare, because cooking for one felt like a joke I wasn't ready to laugh at. Laundry was worse. One Saturday I found myself holding a bottle of detergent in one hand, my phone in the other, calling my mom like I was 15 again. "Hot or cold?" I asked, embarrassed. She chuckled softly, not knowing her son was asking because his wife was gone, not because he was clueless. Even the smallest tasks, changing a light bulb, folding sheets, carried an emptiness to them. They weren't chores anymore. They were reminders. Reminders that she wasn't here, that the life we built had collapsed, and I was left piecing together something that barely resembled living. But each night, sitting on that futon with the hum of the fridge in the background, I told myself the same thing. This is hard, but it's honest, and honest is better than betrayed. At first, every day felt like survival, but slowly, almost without noticing, survival turned into something else. One evening I got tired of cereal and YouTube takeout, so I bought a skillet and some chicken breasts. The first attempt was a disaster, smoke alarm blaring, oil splattering across the counter, but I sat down to my overcooked meal with a strange kind of pride. It wasn't good, but it was mine. Then came the gym. At first it was just to kill time, to avoid the empty apartment. I'd show up in an old t-shirt, drag myself onto a treadmill, sweat out the anger. Weeks passed and I realized I wasn't just sweating out anger, I was reclaiming pieces of myself. Muscles I hadn't seen in years started to show again. My reflection in the mirror began to look less like a broken man and more like someone rebuilding. Living alone stopped feeling like punishment and started feeling like training. I learned how to fold sheets without cursing, how to meal prep for the week, how to enjoy silence instead of fearing it. Nights were still lonely, but less crushing. And little by little, I felt the truth sink in. I wasn't just surviving Melissa's betrayal anymore. I was learning to live without her. It was the little freedoms that surprised me most. One Friday night, I walked into the grocery store without a list. No arguments in my head about what Melissa would or wouldn't eat. I wandered the aisles like a kid, tossing things into the cart just because I wanted them. Steak, hot sauce, a tub of Rocky Road ice cream. For the first time in years, dinner was my decision alone. Back at the apartment, I sprawled across the futon with the TV remote in my hand, grinning at the absurdity of it. No compromises, no bickering over crime dramas versus reality shows. I clicked through channels until I landed on an old action flick, volume cranked too high, a beer sweating on the table beside me. And it felt good. Loud, messy, selfishly good. Even laundry day shifted. No more sorting through her delicate fabrics, no more pretending to care about scented dryer sheets. Just my shirts, my socks, my routine. The monotony of it became a kind of therapy. Each folded shirt, each grocery bag unpacked, was a reminder that this space belonged only to me. The pain of betrayal was still there, lingering like a scar, but in these small, quiet victories I found something I hadn't felt in months. Control. It happened quietly, almost by accident. One afternoon at the grocery store, I heard a voice behind me, soft, tired, but familiar. I turned, and there was Clara. No makeup, hair tied back, a cart half filled with basics. For a second, we just stood there, two people bound by the same betrayal, not sure whether to hug or keep our distance. We talked for a few minutes in the produce aisle, her hand brushing over apples she didn't really see. Later it became coffee in a quiet corner cafe. Then another time, walking by the lake, just talking. There was no romance in it, just recognition, a mirror of pain, a shared language of broken trust. We didn't need to explain. We just understood. For a while, seeing her reminded me I wasn't alone in this. But as weeks passed, the conversations grew softer, shorter. Clara confessed one day, stirring her latte, "I can't stay here anymore. Everywhere I look, I see him." A month later, she packed up and moved to Seattle, chasing a new start. We hugged at the train station, a brief squeeze that said more than words. Watching her leave, I felt both sadness and relief. Sadness because someone who understood me was gone. Relief because it confirmed something I was still learning. Healing wasn't about leaning on another broken soul. It was about standing on my own again. The news came not from Melissa, but through a mutual friend who still floated in the same social circles. She had the baby, they said, almost cautiously, as if I might shatter at the mention. For a moment, I froze. Then the details followed. Melissa gave birth to a little boy. Dark hair. Victor's sharp features unmistakably stamped across the infant's face. There was no room for doubt, no lingering question of paternity. The child was his, not mine. I sat with that truth in silence. For months I'd carried the weight of what if, the haunting thought of being tied to a betrayal forever, of courts forcing me into fatherhood for a child conceived in deceit. Now, the DNA test had settled everything. Legally, I was free. No custody battles, no support payments, no more entanglements that could keep me chained to her life. Strangely, I didn't feel joy. I didn't even feel anger. What washed over me instead was relief. Clean, cold, undeniable, like chains falling from my wrists. Melissa had chosen her path. Victor had chosen his. And I, finally, was no longer bound to either of them. The chapter wasn't just closing, it was sealed. Word spread faster than I ever expected. In our town, whispers travel quicker than facts, and soon everyone knew Melissa had given birth to Victor's child. Friends who once flocked to her side stopped answering her calls. Invitations to brunches, birthdays, and wine nights dried up. The same women she once flaunted Cabo with now kept their distance, their smiles tight and polite when they bumped into her at the grocery store. I didn't see it firsthand, but I heard enough. Someone mentioned she looked drained, pushing a stroller alone through the park, her hair unkempt, eyes ringed with exhaustion. Another said they'd passed her in line at the pharmacy, clutching formula and diapers, her expression hollow, like the weight of her choices had finally landed. Victor, of course, was gone. Not entirely, but enough. He floated in and out, unreliable, his presence more of a burden than a support. And Melissa, who once thrived on attention and luxury, was suddenly living in shadows, her laughter muted, her circle of admirers evaporated. For me, the knowledge came with a strange mix of emotions. Part of me pitied her. Part of me felt vindicated. But mostly, I just felt distance. Her unraveling wasn't mine to fix anymore. I had walked away, and for the first time, I realized how much lighter my life felt without carrying her chaos on my back. One night after a long day at the office, I came back to the apartment, kicked off my shoes, and dropped my phone on the counter. The screen lit up with a notification. Her name, the one I'd tried to erase from my life. Melissa. The message was short. Just 3 words. I miss you. For a moment, my chest tightened. Muscle memory wanted me to answer, to acknowledge, to give her some fragment of the man I used to be. I stared at it, feeling the echo of our years together tugging at me. The memories of Sunday mornings in bed, the road trips, the laughter, flashes of the woman she had once been before Cabo. But then the other images came sharper, stronger. Her tear-stained lies, Victor's shadow in the background of those FaceTime calls, the morning she told me she was pregnant, and the knife that drove through my chest when she said the words, "It's not yours." My thumb hovered, then pressed down. Delete. The message vanished into nothing. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Because the truth was, I didn't miss her. I missed the life I thought I had, the marriage I believed in. And that life was gone. Silence was the only answer she would ever get from me again. In the months that followed, something shifted inside me. At first, I carried this quiet fire, a hunger to see Melissa and Victor pay for what they'd done, to imagine them crumbling under the weight of their choices. But the longer I lived alone, the clearer it became. Revenge wasn't what I needed. It hit me one night while walking back from the gym, the cool air settling on my skin. I realized I hadn't thought about Victor in days. Not his smug grin, not his betrayal, not even his absence as a father. He didn't matter anymore. Neither did Melissa's tears, her texts, or her desperate pleas. What mattered was me, my dignity, my peace of mind. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to drag them through the mud. The simple fact that I walked away with my self-respect intact, that I didn't let their chaos define me, was victory enough. The true revenge wasn't rage. It was rebuilding. It was looking in the mirror and seeing a man who hadn't been broken beyond repair. A man who could start over without bitterness eating him alive. And in that clarity, I found something more powerful than payback. Freedom. It started small. An invite from a coworker to join a group happy hour. A smile from the waitress that lingered a little longer than usual. At first, I brushed it off. Dating felt like a foreign country I didn't want to travel to again. But eventually, curiosity outweighed fear. One Saturday, I agreed to coffee with a woman I'd met through a friend of a friend. Her name was Rachel. She was kind, sharp, carried herself with a quiet confidence. We sat in a corner cafe talking about music, travel, the little quirks of daily life. Nothing heavy, no ghosts hovering between us. For the first time in years, I felt something stir. Not love, not even attraction in its full force, but possibility. The reminder that connection was still out there, that betrayal hadn't poisoned the entire world. I won't lie, it wasn't easy. Every laugh came with a shadow. Every kind gesture triggered a whisper in my head. What if she betrays you too? Trust, once shattered, doesn't rebuild overnight. But as weeks passed and I allowed myself to show up, to listen, to smile back, I realized dating wasn't about replacing Melissa. It was about proving to myself that I could open the door again, that I could risk pain in pursuit of something real. It wasn't a fairy tale restart, but it was a step, and steps were enough. Looking back now with distance and a clearer head, I can say without hesitation, divorcing Melissa was the best decision I ever made. At the time, it felt like my world was ending, like the foundation of everything I knew had been ripped out from under me. But standing here today, I see it for what it was, a trade, pain for freedom, betrayal for dignity, chaos for peace, I remember sitting in that tiny apartment, staring at the walls, thinking I had lost everything. And in a sense, I had. But what I gained was far more valuable. I gained the chance to rebuild, to rediscover who I was without carrying someone else's lies on my back. Sometimes I joke with myself when the memories creep in. Best trade I ever made. Because it's true. I traded the illusion of a marriage for the reality of self-respect. I traded nights filled with doubt and suspicion for mornings where I wake up with clarity. I didn't just walk away from Melissa. I walked back to myself. And that, more than anything, is what makes me certain I chose right. If there's one truth I've carried from all of this, it's that sometimes the hardest choice is the right one. Walking away felt like tearing my own heart out, but staying would have meant losing myself piece by piece. And no relationship, no matter how many years, no matter how many memories, is worth sacrificing your dignity, your peace, your sense of self. I don't tell this story for pity. I tell it because I know there are men out there, maybe watching right now, who are sitting in the same silence I once sat in, staring at the ceiling, wondering if they're crazy for feeling broken, wondering if they're weak for walking away. You're not. You're human. And sometimes survival means letting go. Divorce didn't ruin me. Betrayal didn't define me. They refined me. They forced me to strip everything down until only the truth remained. And the truth is simple. I'm still here. Stronger. Clearer. Freer. So if you've been through it, or if you're going through it now, know this. You're not alone. And if this story hit you, if it made you nod or clench your fists or even tear up, then stick around. There are more stories to tell, more truths to share. Hit that subscribe button, because this journey isn't just mine, it's ours. And together, we'll keep uncovering what it really means to live, to lose, and to rise again.